Hey everybody, I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo, who is off tonight for a very good reason. His eldest daughter, Bella, is graduating from college this weekend. So congratulations to Bella, her parents. Hopefully they're gonna have an amazing weekend, incredible accomplishment. But we have a big and very important show on this Friday heading into Memorial Day weekend. And we start, as Hen and I were just talking about, with the breaking news out of New Orleans on those 5 inmates still on the loose. It has been more than a week now since 10 inmates broke out of Orleans Parish Detention Center. It was in the middle of the night. 5 now have been captured by authorities, but 5 remain on the loose, and they are still considered armed and dangerous. And now, just before the show, this just happened, there was another arrest that has now been made. It seems like it's happening every single day. Look at this guy, Trevon Williams, was already behind bars at the same facility that these men broke out of last week. He has now been charged with helping the 10 men escape. Police have already arrested 4 women, all charged with communicating with, feeding, and transporting the jailbreakers over the last week. The first arrest made was a maintenance worker at the jail who allegedly shut down the water system that allowed the inmates to rip the toilet off the wall, those crazy pictures that we saw, and that's how they got out. So will any of these arrests bring authorities any closer to capturing the remaining fugitives? That is the big question tonight, a week out. Joining me, former FBI agent Tracy Walder, and we've also got the former Orleans Parish Sheriff Marlin Gusman with us. Appreciate you both for being with us. Sheriff, I want to start with you. I want to ask you about this breaking news. There was this man arrested just within the last couple of hours, someone who was also in the jail, now charged with helping these guys get out. What do we know about that, Sheriff?
Well, look, this is not a good time to be a friend or an acquaintance of those fellows that escaped. They are executing search warrants at houses of friends, family, and they're questioning them and trying to get to the bottom of where they could be. So I think a lot of people right now are feeling uncomfortable. And as you pointed out, several people now are under arrest. So this net is starting to drop on them.
Yeah, we showed all the pictures, and you see right there, that apparently is one of their grandmas who you're looking at, this web of people that are apparently helping them. Tracy, what about these women? Because you look at the screen, there's 4 women there. One was the grandma, the other possibly girlfriends. Makes you think back to past escapes involving women. 2015, Joyce Mitchell helped 2 convicted murderers escape in New York. 2022, you remember this case, Tracy. Vicky White, the correctional officer who helped Casey White get out. I was chasing them across the country. Back in '94, there was an Oklahoma prison warden's wife, Bobby Parker, claimed she was kidnapped, and she was on the run with him for 11 years. What do you make of the fact that these women are now in trouble, Tracy?
I think there's a couple different reasons for this, Brian. Thank you for having me. I think the first really is they really tracked the phone calls of these escapees in the prisons. And it seems like they went back through their phone logs to see who they had been in contact with. And I was on Connell's show earlier this week, and I said they had to have help from relatives outside. That's the only way this would have been successful. That's the only way that they would have gotten cash. And part of me wonders if these women were dependent on some of these inmates at one point, for basically their family unit and their family life, and it is important to them to have them outside. I am glad that they were arrested, but I'm concerned because I think they probably helped them in the midst of that immediate escape, and now the individuals are probably long gone.
Well, that's a good point, and the authorities were saying today they believe some of them are still in the area, but some of them may be out of New Orleans. It's interesting, Tracy, this facility has been called cursed in the past by the local media because there's been so many issues. The jail conditions, there were issues. There was a DOJ report about systematic deputy violence. There were viral videos that showed inmates drinking alcohol, using drugs. They had weapons inside the jail. What do you make of the facility, Tracy?
It's interesting. They actually had an independent jail monitor that was assigned to them essentially to ensure that they made changes to this. And that independent monitor just a few months ago actually stated that they were really, really worried about severe and inadequate staffing shortages, which actually speaks to the Bureau of Prisons, as a whole. They are 40% under where they need to be in terms of staffing. And that is very concerning.
This is new tonight. I want to read you this. It was from family of a victim who was killed by one of the escapees. They put out a statement. This is part of it. They said, "We are deeply disappointed in the overall management of Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, from Susan Hudson to the maintenance staff. It is both alarming and distressing that this situation was allowed to happen." And we say allowed because these inmates were essentially handed a get-out-of-jail-free card as if this were a game. One of them included a man who has been convicted of killing 4 people, including Jamar. Sheriff, you can just imagine how these families feel right now that these men are on the run. And then even the prosecutors, we've been told, have had to go into hiding. How do you respond to it, Sheriff?
Well, first of all, I wanted to make clear, this is a new facility. The one that you're referring to as Parish was the one I closed several years ago. This facility, highly electronic. Unfortunately, the current sheriff just isn't maintaining it and isn't properly manning it. That's the real problem, and that's what the monitors are talking about. Look, I can feel for these victims' parents. I can feel for the inmates that I think some of them really just tagged along. Maybe some of them had a plan. The 5 that are still out, but some of these guys just tagged along, said, "You're going, I'm going too," kind of a thing. So their families ought to feel bad that it was made that easy to get out of a really secure facility.
Tracy, it's been interesting all week. We've seen these images coming from cameras in New Orleans. They've got this whole very tech-savvy system there. It's called Project NOLA, and they've got facial recognition software. These are the images right here. So they can actually, hundreds of cameras throughout the city, and it's computers and AI that can go through, identify people's faces, and figure out who they are. And they've apparently been doing this with some of these escapees. There's been some criticism of it, too, like it's almost the creepy factor. What do you think, Tracy? I mean, is it a good thing that they're tracking people like this?
Listen, I'm probably going to get some pushback for this, but I actually do think it's a good thing. And I don't look at it any differently than I look at submitting fingerprints and DNA into databases. That's really how I look at it. I think the biggest criticism, which in my opinion is actually justified, is that it's not actually run by law enforcement. It is run by private companies. Therefore, they are held to different standards, and it might not be as transparent. So if we can find a way to make it under law enforcement, I think that might be more amenable to the public. But this is actually, and yes, sometimes people are wrongly arrested. This is not a foolproof system. However, I do think in a situation like this, where we were talking about people are in danger. These individuals present a danger to society. This is a quick and efficient way to bring them back to justice.
What do you make of it, Sheriff? Because when I first saw these cameras and the images earlier this week, I just assumed this was from the police information center, that it was the police running these cameras. Come to find out, it is an independent organization, not affiliated with law enforcement. I mean, is there a reason for concern, or should we just be happy that they're able to track the escapees?
Look, I agree. We ought to be happy they can track them. Keep in mind, though, that this Project NOLA is very closely coordinated with the police department. Separate organization, not the New Orleans Police Department, but we ought to be using everything that we can to keep the public safe. And at times like this is when these sort of tools become important.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you look at the videos, and there was video that they released earlier this week that it was very clear that's how they were able to track them. What do you think is going to happen next, Tracy? I mean, they've made arrests almost every day, but lately it has just been people that they have found aided the escapees. We haven't seen an escapee arrest in the last couple of days. Do you think they have good intelligence based on what you know?
Yes and no, but that intelligence starts to basically run thin or run dry with the passage of time. Time is sometimes the biggest hindrance to an investigation like this. My hope is, as they continue to arrest some of these accomplices, they will be able to almost put together the pieces of the routes these individuals took. But I suspect that some of them that are still on the loose probably did not tell the individuals who have been arrested where they were going.
I wonder, Tracy, when we talk about the corruption and the past issues with this jail, if some of these arrests might be questionable, not so much the family members, but like, let's talk about the maintenance worker, the plumber. I talked with his lawyer earlier this week who says, wait a minute, this guy's worked at the jail for 5 years. He's never done anything wrong. He didn't know that he was actually helping them get out. He thought there was just a water issue. I mean, could they be trying to sort of blame other people for more of a bigger problem here?
I mean, yes and no, and the sheriff is absolutely right. This is a newer jail. I think 2015 is when this one, the other one was shut down and this one came about. So listen, yes, I think there's a whole host of issues. From what I understand, too, there's reporting that the escapees had threatened to shank this maintenance worker as well. So he could have been threatened. I think what they're doing right now is anyone and everyone that they are suspecting may have played a role in this, they are arresting in the hopes that they can get information. Now, whether or not that's right, I don't know. But in my opinion, there is a clear and present danger to the public right now.
Sheriff, did you know that maintenance worker? There's his pictures up right there. Was he around when you were sheriff? I mean, his lawyer told me a very compelling story. I mean, the fact that he's been a model employee, that none of this made any sense. Why would he help all these people get out? Do you know the guy?
I don't know him personally, but he was around when I was there. And let me tell you, this is not the whole story. Just turning water off is not enough to have them get out. There's rebar that has to be cut. You know, the toilet has to be unbolted. It was bolted in 6 inches of concrete. So this is, there's a whole lot more that has to be fleshed out, investigated, before we can start saying that this guy was responsible, because clearly he could not have done this by himself.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay, we'll see with the investigation.
Yeah, you just wonder, Tracy, if, you know, him, maybe some of the others are sort of being used as a scapegoat.
I mean, they may be, but I wholeheartedly agree with the sheriff. There is not just one person who is responsible for this. That's impossible. Someone had to procure these tools. This wasn't a hole that was really easy to drill. I mean, this took effort, and it probably took time, in my opinion. And I think there were many other people involved in probably a more passive way as well. Now, did he maybe help shut off the water? Sure, but the condition upon which he was made to do that is probably what's in question. Was he threatened? Did they threaten to hurt him and shank him? And so I think there are many pieces to this puzzle that will be put together.
The video still stuns me. I mean, it's been a week, and when I watch it, this video of them pulling the door open, and it really is, like, unbelievable. And then when they just run out, it makes you so mad. And now tonight, to get the statement from one of the victims' families, what they must be thinking tonight, I can't even imagine. Last question for you, Sheriff. Where do you think the last 5 are? Where do you think they're hiding?
I think a couple of them have made it out of state. That's my opinion. I think some are probably still trying to lay low, but you can only lay low for so long before people start telling. Understand that one of the families tried to get the $20,000 reward that's out there for an inmate that escaped. So that money's going to start talking and get people, get their attention. So I think it'll be a matter of time. But some of them they flew the coop.
Well, Crime Stoppers told us that they have been giving out rewards related to this case. So people are calling in tips. And like I said, every day it seems like there's been another arrest. So we'll keep you posted if anything happens over the next hour or so. Marlin, Gusman, and Tracy Walder, we appreciate you both for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, still to come tonight, if you thought Apple products were expensive now, just wait and see how much you'll pay if Trump follows through with the threat he made earlier today to place tariffs on the giant tech company. And that was not the only threat he made. After a judge temporarily halted Trump's ban on foreign students at Harvard, he doubled down and said Harvard will not be the only school in trouble. Are these real threats, or is it just more talk? Two men who know the politics and the players. That's next. All right, so today Trump made not just one, but two major threats over the course of 12 hours. He said his administration is considering blocking not just Harvard, but but now other American universities from enrolling international students. We'll get to that in a moment with Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. But first, there was something else big that happened in the Trump world today. This morning, Trump threatened a 25% tariff on Apple products not made in the United States. That means your iPhones, your iPad, AirPods, all of it. Take a look at what he said.
I had an understanding with him that he wouldn't be doing this. He said he's going to India to build plants. I said, that's okay to go to India, but you're not going to sell into here without tariffs. We're talking about the iPhone now, and, you know, the iPhone, if they're going to sell it in America, I want it to be built in the United States. We don't want to have Canada making our cars. We want to make our cars. Oh, it's a phone call. Do you mind? Hello? Okay, it's only a congressman.
It's kind of funny, his iPhone rang twice while he was giving the press conference there in the Oval Office. But before you Samsung Galaxy fans breathed a sigh of relief, he later clarified that it's not just going to be iPhones that will get tariffed. He'll hit Samsung and other companies too. So is this a threat we should take seriously? Are our iPhones actually going to cost like $3,000 now? Trump's former senior economic advisor, Stephen Moore, joins us now. Thank you for being with us, Stephen. You know, my first thought when I saw this today was, in light of everything else that he said over the last couple of months, do you think this is actually going to happen? Is he just sending a message to Apple? Is he just mad at Tim Cook because they had some kind of meeting on Wednesday? Like, how do you think this plays out?
You never quite know with Donald Trump. And, you know, I've been around him for 8 or 9 years. And sometimes, you know, people think he's doing things that are crazy, but oftentimes he's crazy as a fact. So we'll see. I think he's frustrated that so many of these phones are made outside the United States. But you're also right that one of the risks of putting a huge tariff on these imported iPhones is that you're going to have to pay a lot more for them. Now, I think 3,000 is a little bit of an exaggeration, but they could easily go up by, 20 or 30% in price. And you're talking about right now, some of these phones sell for $800 or $1,000. So that would be a significant increase. I think that Tim Cook is going to probably put in a position of bringing some of this production back home, but there aren't that many cell phones that are made in the United States. They're made in Korea, they're made in India, they're made in China, and that's because they're much cheaper to be made there. So we'll see how this turns out, but this is Trump expressing some anger. I think he had a deal with Tim Cook, and I think he feels like Tim Cook isn't holding up his end of the bargain.
Couldn't Tim Cook just be thinking it's cheaper to pay the 25% tariff than to change all the manufacturing to the United States, pay the wages in the United States, and it actually would be cheaper. I mean, if the phone is $1,000 now, and it's $1,300 when they make it in India, but it would go up to $3,500. There's the numbers in the United States. I mean, could he just be thinking, okay, let's just pay the 25%?
Yeah, quite possibly. You're right, because our production costs are a lot higher in terms of manufacturing. That's why they're made in China and India in the first place, is labor costs are a lot cheaper there. And that does benefit our consumers. Listen, Apple is a $1 to $2 trillion company. It's an incredible American company. There are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs in the United States that are a result of Apple, all the research and development and the technology and the sales force to sell these things. So Apple is a major job producer here in the U.S., notwithstanding that a lot of the factories are there in China.
If Tim Cook decides, let's just keep it the way it is, pay the 25%, does that also end up making President Trump happy? Because he always talks about this tariff money and how incredible it would be.
Well, tariffs are taxes, no question about it, Brian, and they do raise money, and that could be used just potentially to offset some of the costs of these other tax cuts that we're debating in Congress right now as we speak. So certainly that could be a pay for some of the other tax reductions that Trump wants. His general framework, and I helped him on the tax policy, was let's lower taxes on things that are made in the United States, and Michigan and Maine and in Ohio, and then increase the tax on things that are coming in from other countries. And I think most Americans think, that's not such a bad idea. Let's give American workers a little bit of a lift here. So that's, I think, his overall strategy. But we're always going to have global trade. I mean, the global trade is what makes the world go round. And we've been big beneficiaries of global trade because we have these companies like Google and Apple and Amazon that have really made so much money for Americans by being a global business.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think any American's going to be happy if they have to spend $3,500 on an
No,
iPhone.
I
Oh, my
won't be.
gosh. Everyone will be mad at President Trump
I got my
then.
iPhone here. I don't want to pay 30%
No
more
way.
for it.
Oh, my
but
gosh.
look, we'll see. Look, some of the cost of the tariff, if it is ever applied, will be borne by the shareholders of Apple, and some of the costs will be borne by the Chinese workers who may not have jobs, and some of it will be borne by the consumers who buy iPhones. I mean, that's just, and we just don't know exactly what those proportions are. But I don't think you're going to see a doubling of cell phone costs.
Yeah.
I think that's a little of an exaggeration.
And President Trump made a good point today that, you know, these companies make so much money. Like, can't they just make a little less and move their stuff back to America and help the people out? So,
look,
you know.
I'm an investor in Apple, and most people have their 401 plans, a lot of Apple and Google and all these tech stocks. So, you know, I like the fact that we have these incredibly productive and profitable companies. And so, you know, look, the more profitable they are, the better our retirement funds are going to be.
Yeah. Stephen Moore, appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much. Have a good holiday weekend.
You too. Happy Memorial Day.
Okay, now to Trump's battle with Harvard University. Today, a judge put a halt on Trump's ban on foreign students entering the university, but that did not stop him from doubling down, not just against Harvard, but doing this to other universities too. Here's what he said when he was asked about it.
Are you considering stopping other universities besides Harvard from accepting foreign students?
Well, we're taking a look at a lot of things. And as you know, billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment. They have $52 billion. Harvard's going to have to change its ways. So are some others.
So again, how much of this is reality? Is this actually going to go through? We want to ask now Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, who joins us live. Professor Dershowitz, thank you for being with us. You know, the part of the story that I find that's been left out a lot is that the Department of Homeland Security gave Harvard a 72-hour deadline to come forward with documents on these international students about their disciplinary records, about who was attending what protest, and Harvard didn't do that. So it doesn't sound like President Trump wanted to do this initially, but Harvard just ignored Homeland Security. Isn't that right?
I think that's right. Look, let's be frank. There are too many foreign students in American universities. Harvard, 27.5% of the student body is foreign. When I started teaching there, it was probably 5%. That means every spot that's taken by a foreign student is denied an American student. Harvard should be focusing not so much on making money off foreign students, but on extending its academic privilege to American students. That's number one. Number two, these two kids that were killed in Washington, D.C., Harvard and other universities have blood on their hands. They not only tolerated the kind of incitement and anti-Semitism that would lead a murderer like the murderer who operated in D.C., but they actually taught anti-Semitism. It was part of their curriculum. Intersectionality, race matters curriculum, DEI, are incubators for anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and the kind of violence we saw. President Trump is absolutely correct. If these were foreign students coming in from Nazi Germany in 1935, by the way, Harvard brought a lot of Nazi students and faculty from Nazi Germany. The president of Harvard was a Nazi lover in 1935. And we and liberals would have loved if the president had said, no, we don't want people coming from Germany. Look, this goes too far. It also covers Israeli students and Canadian students and British students. So what we need is much more focused and targeted sanctions, focused and targeted on which research projects. They shouldn't be cutting back on research projects involving Alzheimer's and cancer, but they should be cutting back on research that is propagandistic, like at the Divinity School and the Public Health School. So more targeting of which foreign students come in and which don't. By the way, Harvard is going to lose these cases. In the end, the executive has the right to determine, and certainly the legislature has the right to determine who comes in and who doesn't come into the country. It's not up to the courts. They are the least qualified branch to determine who comes into the country.
And you made a very good point. And just to be clear, you know, when an American goes to one of these universities, they may get scholarships. They may not pay the full tuition, but the international students are paying 100% cash tuition most of the time. So Harvard just wants the money, right?
That's true. But also, just getting back for a second to those two people, I can't get them out of my mind, those two young people who were murdered. I predicted their murder, interestingly enough. I recently just wrote a book called The Preventive State, in which I talk about how to prevent murders like the kind we saw in the District of Columbia. And I said, based on my experience defending a lot of protesters during the Vietnam War, I am completely convinced that these violent protests that occurred at Harvard and other places will lead to murders and will lead to bombings. That's what happened during the Vietnam period, when violent protesters ultimately planted bombs, murdered policemen. And I think we're seeing the beginning of that today. And so universities really, really have to look inward and start saying to themselves, we have some responsibility. From Oman and Saudi Arabia and Qatar, we have an obligation to our students who are going to be murdered, who are going to be discriminated against, if you don't do something in terms of vetting which foreign students are coming in. Now, for them, the violent doers are not foreign, like the guy who killed these two people, but the incitements are coming from the university. We have to.
Yeah, we had the picture of the young couple up right now. I understand why you're still thinking about them. I think we all are. It was just horrific. Alan Dershowitz, we appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up next, we're going to do something a little different in the next segment. Going to be fun. Yesterday wrapped up the first 2 weeks of the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, and our legal experts have been keeping score. They've got very different takes on whether the prosecution or the defense is winning. Did Cassie's testimony help or hurt? How did the jury respond to that infamous hotel video and the accusation that Diddy blew up a rival's car? That came out this week. What a crazy day that was. They're going to make their cases. We're going to almost have our own little jury here. That's coming up next. So yesterday wrapped up the first 2 weeks. Can you believe it's been 2 weeks in the Sean Diddy Combs trial? There was no court today, so we're going to take this opportunity to break down how this is all playing out for the jury, which of course are the only people that will actually matter in the end of all of this. Where did the prosecution get wins, and where was the defense able to do some serious damage? Two of our legal experts, you see them on the show all the time. They've been keeping score and are ready to make their case. We've got NewsNation legal contributor Jesse Weber. He is going to represent the prosecution tonight, so Jesse, the prosecutor. And we've got criminal trial attorney Sarah Azari, the defense side, which she's very, very used to. Plus also, jury consultant Susan Constantine is here with her take on how it is playing out for the jurors. Man, we've got the A-team tonight. This is the best. All right, so I wanted you both to pick the 5 biggest wins for each side. The really interesting thing is, you as a prosecutor, you as the defense attorney, you came up with 3 of the same things. You both independently think you won independently, one of which was Cassie's testimony. You both think Cassie's testimony helped your side. Jesse, prosecutor Jesse, you start.
Okay, so she's the star witness. The case rises and falls with her testimony. She provided a very detailed, vivid, and descriptive account of repeated abuse that was corroborated by photo evidence, video evidence, and other people who testified. But where it becomes so important for the sex trafficking charge, and when we talk about force, fraud, coercion, I'll put aside the 2016 tape because we'll talk about that later. She testified about a plane incident. When she's sitting on the plane with Sean Combs, he allegedly shows her videos of freak-offs as a way to intimidate her. She says she felt trapped. They land. He demands a freak-off. He gets a freak-off. So what do you have there? Travel. You have coercion. You have a sex act. That, to me, feels like the clearest cut case of sex trafficking so far in this case.
Defense attorney Sarah.
He's definitely a prosecutor because he's cherry picking this one incident on a jet. Okay, here's the deal. Where the defense did damage, Brian, is that they had her read her texts one after another, and it was replete with consent, autonomy, and agency to make a choice. And I think where she really lost credibility for me was at the end of her cross-examination when defense counsel asked her, how much did you get from the hotel, right? Because the theme here is a money grab. And she was not wanting to disclose it. Oh, I don't know. And then it was $10 million. How do you not know that you're about to get a check for $10 million? She lost credibility right then and there. And you know what? The deal is that I think the defense has handled her with care on cross, which I think is a great tactic, but they're not going to handle her with care in closing argument, right? They're going to say, look, she read the text. She was in a loving relationship. They focused on the love in the relationship, not the abuse, and that she's time and time again consenting. If no means no, then yes means yes.
Okay, Susan, you've heard from the prosecution and defense. What do you think the jury's going to think?
I think the jury is going to side with Jesse's position from the prosecution. So 1 score for Jesse, only because, you know, first of all, I shouldn't say only because, but her overall presentation, right? She was young at the time. She's now pregnant. She was crying on the stand. She was very emotional. You could see that she was quivering. And even though we know that she may have consented, overall, I think that the evidence will prove, and I think the jury will see and knows that this was coercion, just like Jesse has stated.
Okay, number 2 now, you both felt that Kid Cudi's testimony helped your side. Jesse, why?
To prove racketeering, they need to prove at least 2 underlying crimes of this criminal enterprise. I think he helped prove arson and kidnapping. He said that he believes Diddy firebombed his car, even claims that Diddy several years later admitted and apologized to him. What was that for? Then he also claimed that one of Combs' assistants, Capricorn Clark, who's going to testify next week, was essentially forced to go with Diddy and an associate to his house. So if you're trying to prove those 2 elements and basically saying that Sean Combs is a mob boss, a gangster, pivotal testimony with Kid Cudi.
I mean, the bombing of the car was pretty bad, Sarah.
Yeah, but it's speculative. There was no arrest. There was no fruitful investigation. There was no prosecution of neither the break-in nor the firebombing of the car. And I think, again, at the end of his cross, the defense did some damage because they asked him, so Cassie was playing both of you, right? And she was living a double life, correct? And he said yes. So, again, it was challenged Cassie's credibility.
Susan, who's the winner here?
I got to throw this one at Jesse again. I promise you,
I mean, come on.
You got it. Okay. So to Jesse's point, though, really, I think that Kid Cudi could corroborate the fear that Casey had experienced. And also, I think that it really falls in line with the stalking and from an outsider's perspective. I mean, the car being blown up, I think that all kind of plays into that this was not only was he jealous, but he was also stalking Cassie.
Okay.
So definitely prosecution.
And then we've also got Don Richard. Again, both of you thought this helped your side. This, of course, was another alleged victim, said Diddy hit her. Why was it so good for the prosecution?
Aside from the fact that she corroborated the physical abuse and she said she herself was threatened, so you're talking about a pattern of abuse of women for racketeering, I think the most important part of her testimony is she claims Diddy punched Cassie in front of high-profile celebrities like Usher, Jimmy Iovine, Neo. If the jury accepts that, no wonder Cassie never came forward. No wonder Cassie never left. If there's all these questions about did she consent, why didn't she leave? If he is able to attack somebody with impunity and nobody steps forward, that is compelling evidence to why she didn't do anything.
You know how much credibility she has? Zero. Okay, she was eviscerated on the stand. She is in this for money. At the end, she said, I want justice, and justice equals compensation from Combs. And let me tell you, I've had a lot of dawns throughout my career, okay? When a story changes over time, not for less remembered, but each time there's more facts, there's more elaboration, there's more details. That's one thing that it concludes, it is the person's lying. Okay, so she had no credibility. She was the worst witness, and she had just jumped on the bandwagon with Lisa Bloom at the helm last fall. So, I mean, I think she was the worst witness for the prosecution, and I know our jury consultant is going to vote for me.
Well, let's see. Come on, Susan. What do you think the jury's going to think of Don's testimony?
Sarah, my friend. No, it's for the prosecution again. I'm sorry.
This is all biased, just like this prosecution. Just like this prosecution, they're cheating, and so is our jury consultant.
So you think that the jury believes Don, Susan?
Yes, I do that because I feel like they're showing this pattern of abuse. I think it was coercive, as Jesse has stated, and I think it's clearly seen throughout this testimony. So I'm sorry, Sarah, I can't vote for you right this one, but I promise you, you've got one coming up.
Never calling you on a case I have, ever.
And quickly, we all love Susan.
I know,
we can't
we
help it. What do you think of the video, Jesse? I mean, that was a big win you had on your list for the prosecution, which makes sense.
Yeah, it's the most important piece of evidence in the case. The defense tried to make sure it didn't come in, but the importance of it is it happened after a freak-off. You tie it to sex trafficking, and also, by the way, you use it to help prove the bribery, which is one of the underlying charges, right, that Sean Combs attempted to bribe a security guard. I think it's the most important piece of evidence in this case, and the jury's going to talk about that more.
I mean, without the video, they wouldn't have a case, right? But I would say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you might not like Sean Combs, you might even hate Sean Combs, but you have to separate your disgust from guilt.
But after a freak-off.
Quickly, Sarah, you said big win for defense on your list was the Punisher testimony.
Why? Oh, the Punisher was great because the Punisher really drove home consent. He said that Cassie did not appear to be coerced. She was willing. She appeared to enjoy herself. And I think what was really important about him was that he neutralized this idea of a freak-off, right? This is not some weird illicit activity. This is a couple having fun. This is what they're into. It's a fetish, and they're playing out their sex lives. I mean, that's what he explained to the jury. So to me, I thought that was really important because the jury's like, what the hell, freak off? That must be illegal.
Susan, we only have a couple of seconds left, but overall, so far, 2 weeks in, where do you think this stands with the jury?
I think that it's swaying more heavily weighted towards prosecution than it is defense, but the Punisher definitely is a defense witness. Good job, Sarah.
See, you got to win, Sarah. Listen, my favorite thing about the Punisher is you guys see him on NewsNation, you hear about the testimony, he's like this escort, and you see those pictures of him in the bondage gear. And then he's like everything. A businessman. He shows up on NewsNation, and he's like a businessman.
Don't judge somebody by their names. Don't judge them.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Susan. Have a great weekend. We appreciate you guys.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, still to come, is Trump finally keeping his promise to give the public full disclosure when it comes to what the government knows about UFOs? They've been saying that forever. Well, the Trump administration just released a new document that could help prove there is life on another planet. But why are they finally releasing it now? You've got Pentagon whistleblower Lou Elizondo. He's going to join you right after the break. Is the government finally coming clean about what it knows about UFOs? There's a new report by the Federal Aviation Administration that admits in 2023 an orange and white UFO crashed into an Air Force fighter jet during a routine training mission. And the UFO caused so much damage to the $60 million jet that it was forced to land. And that is not the only new evidence that they released. Trump's top science advisors recently admitted that the government may have anti-gravity technology. Look at this.
Our passenger planes are slower than they used to be. Our trains crawl compared to those in other parts of the world. Our cars do not fly. We are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
Manipulate time and space. Oh my gosh, I'm surprised that hasn't been a bigger story. So why has the Trump administration decided to disclose all of this now? I want to ask former Pentagon UFO whistleblower and investigator Lou Elizondo. Lou, it's nice to have you with us. First of all, the UFO that crashed into the fighter plane, what do we know about that?
Well, the problem is that we really don't know much, and therein lies the challenge, right? When you have an incident involving a $40 million combat aircraft, and only the details now are starting to be released through Freedom of Information Act and FAA, there's a problem. Now, we've been saying for the last 8 years since I've been out that there have been dozens upon dozens of these near-air collisions that have occurred with military and civilian and commercial pilots. This is not just happening with military aircraft. Now, this is the first time we heard of an actual mid-air collision, but some of these objects are coming so close to combat aircraft that they are literally splitting that combat formation right down the middle. So you can imagine how close combat aircraft fly when they're flying in formation. Now imagine a UAP coming in right between them. So this is nothing new. And I think, you mentioned earlier, why is the administration having the conversation now? And I think it's because this has really become the worst kept secret in American history. It's been 80 years of suppression and misinformation, and we're at the point now where I think the administration realizes that America can handle the truth.
Yeah, it does feel like more has been trickling out over the last few years. You've been working with the FBI on their investigations, their FBI investigations. What can you tell us about what they're finding? Is there anything new there?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. First of all, America is getting a heck of their money spent very well with the FBI. I'm absolutely amazed how well they're doing. In fact, they're running laps around the Department of Defense's Arrow program that was established specifically to look at UAP. And the FBI team, it's a small but scrappy team of folks, are really doing one heck of a job. And I think if you look at Luna's recent statement that she said when she was asked about the FBI meeting that we helped organize in the SCIF, she said it was a 10 out of 10, and that I guess Arrow now has some explaining to do. So the FBI is doing fantastic, but also we can't forget about Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and the entire intelligence community. There are pockets of excellence that are working very, very hard behind the scenes also to try to help boost the FBI's efforts. And I think we're finally getting a congealing, if you will, of the right people, the right resources, the right authorities to finally shed some light on this incredible mystery and give the information not only to Congress, but the American people.
We only have about a minute left, but the clip that we played in the intro, I just kind of find to be fascinating. The top White House science advisor saying that the U.S. has anti-gravity and something about time technology, almost like it almost just kind of slipped out. What are we to make of that?
Well, you're talking about the engineering of the space-time metric. And that is something that we looked at in ATIP, and before that, the programs before mine, and certainly afterwards. This is nothing new. What is new is that the government is starting to become increasingly more transparent on what it knows about these incredible enigmas that we call UAP.
Well, Lou Elizondo, we appreciate you coming on tonight. We appreciate you always fighting to find the truth and bring it to us. And I hope you have a nice weekend.
My sincere honor and privilege. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll be right back after this. All right, so Chris will be back on Tuesday with a brand new show. We hope he's having a great time at his daughter's graduation. Dusty, though, is still here with me tonight. She wanted to take the day off because Chris was off, but she's still working to help me out and get through the show. And she actually has an interesting story about P. Diddy. You go way back with P. Diddy.
He wasn't
I didn't know
P.
this.
Diddy then. Way back. He was Puffy. He was Sean Puffy Combs. And I actually, my claim to fame used to be that I was the first person to put him on TV. I put him on a talk show back in the very early 90s.
What talk show?
The Richard Bay Show. You weren't born yet, I don't think. Well, Sean Puffy, Puff Daddy. Then anyway, so I need a new claim to fame, I guess. I used to brag about it all the time. I was very impressed with myself. But I do want to go to court one day, and you and I were making plans.
Well, I wanted to go today because I came into New York to do the show, and my plan was to get up and be in line at 6 a.m. But there was no court today, so next time we'll go. All right, have a good weekend, Dusty. Leland Vittert starts right now. Leland.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.